Hi there, welcome to the Franknut Sewing Machines YouTube channel. I'm Lucy, the shop manager at our shop here in Birmingham, and today we're going to take a look at the Bonina 770 QE Plus model. So this has got quite a few new features compared to the other Quilters Edition models, and so we're just going to go through a lot of those, including what's in the box and kind of how to navigate around the machine, just all of the basics really. So first of all, what actually you get with the machine. A little set of threads to get you started, which is always nice to have. So these are obviously Bonina recommended threads. The stitch regulator, which is the kind of for the free motion quilting mainly. We'll go through that in some more detail as well and get that out. Your knee lift, even though the machine comes with the electronic knee lift function, electronic presser foot lifter function, sorry, you do still get the good old knee lift in there. All of your paperwork in a sturdy box, so you get a proper big paper manual with this machine, and so if you ever do need a good reference, it's in there, along with stitch reference cards and things as well. But everything you actually need is also on the machine itself in the settings. We've also got our slide on table. I'm just going to leave this off for now because we're going to be looking at the bobbin area and things, but this literally just slides onto the machine in the Bonina style. Pop that there. And then the wardrobe. So this is the Barbie wardrobe, Bonina wardrobe, whatever you want to call it, full of Bonina goodies. So when you get it out of the box, they do come in kind of separate little packets, but we've got them kind of all actually set up in the wardrobe. So you've got your set of bobbins, and so you get 5 in total. 1 is inside the machine already. Feet-wise, we've got our 4D, which is the dual feed zipper foot, 20C, which is an open toe embroidery foot, and number 1C, which is a just standard 9mm foot, and the 97D, which has got a guide. So this is a dual feed 1/4 inch foot with an attached a separate patchwork guide that you can screw onto the machine and actually use with loads of different feet. Our buttonhole foot as well, and on the machine you've got your 1D, which comes on there as standard. So that's your standard kind of zigzag foot, but with the dual feed integrated. We've got foam pads. We've got our straight stitch needle plate hiding in there, just the right size drawer, and all the accessories that you need to kind of maintain the machine, including oil, brushes, spare needles, spool caps, all of that, and the stylus, which I'll get out and use actually on screen with the machine now. And it all stores away nice and neat, and you've got extra space in there as well. Should you want to add any extra feet to your collection, you can do that really easily. Take this out. So we're going to take a look at winding on the bobbin and getting started with the machine overall, and then go through some of the different features, as I said, including the Bsr, which will be fun. So with winding on a bobbin, first of all, this is going to be your first task when using this machine for the first time. The bobbins have got, these are the jumbo bobbins, and the Bonina 9 hook system that is inside this machine, and also quite a few others in the range now, has got kind of these shiny sides and also a blank side. So you can only actually use them one way, in the bobbin case and on the bobbin winder. So we'll pop this onto the bobbin winder, and it is shiny side down that this goes in, and it also goes into the bobbin case shiny side down. So we'll pop that in, and those shiny bits are to do with the bobbin sensor. So we'll pop that on there, take our thread. We've got a horizontal spool pin as well as a vertical spool pin that you can flip up here. We're going to use the horizontal one for now, and I'll just find the appropriate size spool cap for that as well. Do it properly. This is the medium spool cap, and that fits on there nice and neatly. This is just a standard Gutterman sew wool polyester thread, which is kind of a bit of our default thread that we use on most machines in store to test stitch, and we get a really good result with it. So thread is coming directly off of the spool pin to the left, and first stage is to hook around this back kind of thread guide. We're then going to go to the tension disc here, which we're going to wind around in the direction of the arrow, and you'll feel that there is a little bit of tension when that's tugged in, applied to the thread, and this is so it can then wind onto the spool nice and smoothly onto the bobbin. I'll take it over to the bobbin, and again in the direction of the arrow, just wind around a couple of times to get it started. And there is a little trimmer actually built into the lever on the bobbin winder, just so it kind of holds the thread in place and keeps it nice and neat. And then flip over the bobbin winder, and that will fill, nice and quiet as well. And on screen we can even control the speed of that bobbin winder if you want to take that up to 100%, but its default setting is 62. So it fills up pretty fast, as you can see. And these jumbo bobbins can hold up to 70%, I believe, more thread than standard bobbins, which you get on most of the machines. And when it is full, it'll just pop over. Because you don't want your bobbins to be overfilled either, because that could hinder how it actually performs in the bobbin case. So that is a nice full bobbin. I'm going to use that little trimmer that's behind here just to cut that off to release it. And we'll come down to the bobbin area. So this is the Bernina 9 hook, and to remove the bobbin case initially, press in that, just to press in the kind of silver bar, and the bobbin case just pops out. It's very easy. And again, this is going to go in only one way, because I've only wound on the thread one way, the bobbin can only go in one way, and that is with those shiny bits down. Once that's in, it kind of pulls into this slot underneath the kind of that's the actual tension flap there, and we're going to tug it up into this wire guide, then onto the spindle. You kind of keep that bar there horizontal whilst pushing it in, and then you'll feel it's automatically kind of latches in, and we've got a trimmer there so we can trim off our thread to make it the optimum length. This is your bobbin sensor, so this will actually detect it when your bobbin's running low, so it's important to keep this kind of dust free. That bit of light there is the bit that's sensing your bobbin, so you do need to kind of maintain that area and keep it nice and dust free if you can. Pop that up, so I'll have a look at the top threading now. Just pop my drawer away. So I'll just gently release that off of the bobbin guide there. It can stay in that back thread guide, that initial thread guide. That's exactly where it needs to be for the top threading as well. I'm going to come down the front of the machine, underneath the front, and I'm going to into the take-up lever here, just follow that action, that lovely smooth action around the metal guide, and it does just slot in down the front of the machine. We've then got another guide here, one that's slightly kind of more forward before we get to the thread guide that's right at the top of the needle. And so you may find that you might need to put a little bit of tension on that thread to kind of get it to slot in all the way, because there's a couple, so it goes behind this movable wire and the fine flap as well. And I can feel we've got just a nice smooth kind of grip on the thread. To thread the needle, we've got the needle threader. This automatically lowers the foot when it is engaged. So now we've got that engaged, the foot's gone down, and so we've actually got tension on the thread, which helps us thread the needle. It's going to scoop under the arm, depress the needle threader all the way, so it has to go that extra mile there at the bottom, so it's quite a hard depression on a new machine, to be honest. Into the threader, I can feel it kind of click into position, and then I'm going to let this go with a bit of slack, and the loop has been pulled through. I can then gently pull that off of the wire and pull it through. When your machine initially turns on, you'll have noticed that the foot was already raised, and so for threading the foot does need to be raised, but when you turn it on it will already be in that correct position once it's done all of its calibrations. When you first turn on any Bonina, they make lots of little noises, and they're all just checking each individual part of the machine to make sure that it's in the right place to start stitching and threading. Right, so I'm just going to do a quick test just to make sure that it is actually all good. So if I tap the foot pedal, the foot will lower, and we may have some settings here where it's set to do a tying off, I'm not sure, but let's see what it's set to do. Yeah, it's set to at the minute, and that's an internal setting that we can adjust. And we've got the 1D foot engaged on here at the moment, so we've got the dual feed as well. But yeah, that is stitching how I would expect it to, which is great. We've got the hover function on there as well at the moment, so that means that this is something you can turn on and off in the settings. which I think we'll have a look at kind of the screen overall and how we get to those kinds of settings, because when they first come out the box, that setting might not actually be set on, so your foot would just stay lowered when you stop sewing. It depends on what your needle stop position is set to be, but we can have a look at that once we're going through the kind of screen as a whole. Obviously you can add in your knee lift at any point. I've got the machine on a bit of an angle for showing you here on this video, so it might not be the best angle to put it on now, but you can always put the knee lift on, so you've got that feature as like an ad hoc feature, so you can use it whenever you want. You don't have to have it happening all the time or turning it on and off, it's up to you. So on screen then, we've got this much larger, and this is a new feature of the 770 QE Plus edition, this much larger screen. So this is more akin to the 790 screen that we've had around at the moment. We've also got the addition of these extra buttons. So this is pattern begin, and also this tying off, so it's pattern begin there and the tying off button here. So we can actually utilise those, because before there was only 2 buttons. Sliding speed control, as in with all Boninas, so you can set that wherever you feel comfortable, and that will limit your speed. Over on the right hand side we've got the 2 dials, the stitch width and stitch length, but they are multifunctional, so sometimes they can be used to actually scroll through different menus of within the settings and things on screen. And also our needle position button, which is very self-explanatory, literally moves around and tells you which needle position you're at. So on this lovely big screen we've got machine settings kind of on the left hand side. So we've got our tension, which can be altered at the touch of a button to be wherever you want it to be. However, the stitches do alter the tension automatically depending on what you have selected. They will change, so the machine knows what tension is best for it for a certain stitch, so it's good to kind of refer to the defaults first of all, but we'll go through how to use the mannequin and lady in order to get the right stitch for what it is you're sewing. Your needle button here, you can tell the machine if you're using a specific kind of needle. So if you've got a twin needle on, then it means it will actually show you what that stitch looks like using a twin needle, for example, on the zigzag, on the straight stitch and things. But it'll also, in the same vein, not let you do anything that's going to damage the needle plate. So it'll go red if it's, because you've got 2 needles in, you know, it's a protection measure there. We'll just tell it that we've got our standard needling, because that's what we do have in. This is your foot selection section, which is really useful. So we can tell the machine exactly what foot we're using. It's going to put stars next to the feet that are going to be suitable for the stitch that you have selected. But you can actually view the full range of feet on here. So if I was to select, for example, let's think of one that might cause not a problem as such, but something, but the button sewing on foot. If I tell the machine I've got that foot on, it's only so we actually get a picture of what the foot looks like on screen, and it will only let me do certain things, so that is a no-no. It's not going to let us do that one. If at any point you've put some weird settings into the screen, you can press clear. Oh, it doesn't do it for the foot, does it? You can do it with the stitch settings. There we go. But you can press clear if you have done anything strange to the stitch and you're not sure what it is and you want to go back to normal. You can then press clear and it'll recalibrate the stitch to its standard setting. Foot pressure is a digital control as well. So this, you can either use the plus buttons here, actually use the slider, or use the dials on the side. And if you want to just have it back to the standard setting, if you just touch that, it'll clear it and go back to where it was for this particular stitch. Next one down is the needle plate. So we can say, because it comes with the straight stitch needle plate obviously, so if you have that on, it is best to tell the machine again that you have that on. This is a similar thing, safety feature, as the foot setting. It means that it won't deviate, it won't hit the needle plate. So all your stitches will now come up as little lines, because it won't actually physically let you select them. Well, you can select them, but it's only going to do, it won't deviate from that central needle position. So we'll just pop that back to normal as well. This is your feed dog position, so it's just going to actually give us an indication of where the feed dogs are, and that's how you actually adjust them. So we can put them up and down at the button at the side. So that goes in quite deep. There we go. So when that's in all the way, this has now gone yellow, and that means that the feed dogs are lowered. You've then got your bobbin sensor at the bottom here. So this, when you press it, it just gives you some information about threading the bobbin. And you can scroll down on the screen to see, yeah, there's just a little animation video on how to thread your actual bobbin. But when it's running low, that'll actually flash red and give you a chance to fill your bobbin again. So now we're going to look at the other side of the kind of menu, the other side of the screen on the right hand side. So these are our stitch selection folders essentially. So each of these are filled with all sorts of different things, lettering, full of buttonholes, quilting stitches, your favourites if you do actually make any of like your own stitches, and then the recently viewed. So this is things that you've looked at within any given session. Actually, I think it saves them from before then as well. So yeah, that's a handy to have if you can't remember exactly which stitch number it was. But we'll just start up here. I just wanted to have a look basically, once you've got a stitch selected, looking at this eye function, because in here you can do all sorts with a stitch. You can set kind of how many that you want to actually have in a row. So you could make that, right, there's 15 of those if you wanted, to be really precise on filling an area. We could also, oh, if I close that, open that up again. There we go, so that's got the 15 there. You can mirror a stitch. You can flip it both ways actually, horizontally and also vertically. Balance, but you shouldn't have to mess around with that at this moment in time. The elongation, pattern elongation, so if you had a stitch that really you wanted to keep the density as the same as it was, then you can use the pattern elongation, and the new triple stitch function as well, which is an addition on this machine. So this is a where it will actually triple stitch on top to give a really bold finish to different stitches. It doesn't actually show you it on the screen, but it shows you it in the actual stitch. So let's have a quick look at that one on a nice decorative stitch. So we can pick something. I might go with, not the umbrella, maybe the tree, little kind of festive tree. So if I go into the eye, and then I could flip my tree that way, and then I can put on the triple stitch. And so when we stitch with that, I put my feed dogs down earlier and I forgot to put them back up, so let me just pop them up. There we are. That's the one. So instead of this tree coming out as a single line, and I'm just going to use the pattern end, so it'll finish at the end of a complete tree. We've actually got this one programmed at the moment to trim off as well. So it's actually done a triple stitch on that tree to make it a really bold finish, which looks really, really great. Okay, so that's on those kind of stitches. If I just, so that's within the eye function that you can use on any stitches. Alphabets, if you want to combine lettering, you can actually combine anything on this model. You can combine sewing stitches and alphabets. But in order to actually get in there, if we were to select this folder and say select the A, we're just going to get a row of A's, which might be really suitable, exactly what you need for a decorative border or something, then you just want a monogram. Otherwise, if you want to write a word, if you go to the plus button, and then we can actually, it'll appear here once we start writing. To actually extend it out so it's a bit easier to utilise, if we press this arrow here, it extends the area so we can actually see, as opposed to long ways, we can actually see it as we would normally read something. So we can write whatever we want. I'm just going to go with my name. And so we can go to the lowercase letter numbers and also special characters really easily from here. So if I wanted to actually add something on there as well, I can go to my decorative characters and access them, and maybe pick something to go on the end. And if I wanted to, I can go through the lettering. So, oh, actually, I do want to add something at the beginning. Wherever these little dots are, I can also add some little hearts at the beginning as well. If I close that up, we can then see how it's going to appear here. And you can kind of use this button here to scroll through it to make sure that you're happy with how it looks. Now I think if I go to that last one, I might want to mirror that so it looks like a mirror image of the original one. So if I go to the eye here and mirror it, oh, not that way, if I mirror it that way, then yeah. So I'm going to get kind of this nice little border, well not border, it's almost like a little enclosed section there. So that's how you can use that's called combination mode, and so you can easily, it's really easy to use on here. If you want to come out of combination mode at any time, you just press that plus button and we're back to the kind of normal stitch selection. So you can always go back into it, you don't have to, and it'll still stay there, so we can then go back in there and we've got exactly what we were doing. So you can easily flip between the two. We have the buttonhole section here as well, which you can't actually use in combination mode, so if we come out of that, big range of buttonholes with the automatic buttonhole foot as well. Lots going on, including eyelets and also the sewing on function as well. But if we were to just show you how a kind of buttonhole works, just grab our foot from here. So foot 3A is the automated buttonhole foot. So if I remove the dual feed first of all, because we have that on at the moment with the 1D, and remove the foot and pop this one on. So you can't use the dual feed with the buttonholer, it is just as it is. You can get different fabric feeding aids for the buttonholer if you are struggling on a particular material. But essentially, on something like this, we should be just right. So if I was to select one of the buttonholes on screen, let's go with 55 for example. I'll tell the machine as well that I've got the buttonhole foot on, just to make it happy. Ooh. So now I've got a picture of my buttonhole foot and exactly what's going on there. We get a different set of information in the information screen when we go to it when we're on buttonholes, because it can actually record the buttonhole length that you set it. So you have the yellow circle there that can be adjusted using the multifunction dials, and that will set the buttonhole to the length that you require for the button. You just hold it on the screen and make sure that it kind of envelopes it as neatly as it can. So once you've got that set, you can also set the, if we go back into there, the width, the centre part of the buttonhole by using the dial here. So you'll see that is the middle part, the cutaway section, is getting wider and narrower as we move that around. If you want it back to default, just tap it. If we come out of there and we're on just the normal screen, we can even increase our buttonhole width to the full 9mm stitch width that's available on this machine. And again, just press clear if you want it to go back to its normal settings. I think that's actually taken away my length. Let me just set that, because we did change that. I think we set that to 16. And then when you're ready, you can tap the foot pedal. It'll lower the foot and start stitching. It's up to you how fast you want to go. So we can set that to actually trim off at the same time when we've completed it, but that setting wasn't in there, so we'll just trim it off as normal there. And there we are. Lovely. I do like the Bonina buttonholes. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the quilting stitches, which is the next folder down. So for this, if I was to select one of these, there's quite a big range of quilting stitches in this machine, and we've got applique stitches as well as you know, lovely little satin stitches and all sorts. You will see that that 3A foot has stayed on screen there. What I need to do, and because it's got a yellow bit here, that means that a change has been made, and that goes for basically any kind of highlighted section. If it's highlighted in yellow, it means that we've done something to tell the machine that we've got something on. So sometimes it's best to actually take that off. So I'm going to take off that, so that's deselecting that 3A, and I'm going to let the machine decide for me what it says is the best foot and that is chosen for that stitch. So for that one it's chosen the 20C, For the little applique one there, it's chosen the 1C. So now I can be led by the machine on my foot choice, which is really useful. So you can do it two ways. You can either tell it or let it tell you. So we've got a big range of quilting and applique stitches and patchwork stitches in here. 7 pages of them. Next one down is the kind of favourites folder, which is a like if you've made any changes to a stitch, you can actually access those. So for example, if I had a really specific applique stitch that I'd made an ideal kind of size for a project I was working on, and I wanted to actually save that, if I went to the heart at the bottom there and then pressed the folder with the arrow going in, I would put it inside a folder. So I'm just going to choose folder number 1. There's my stitch. It doesn't look like anything special, but it's exactly what I want. If I press the tick there, that means that that is now saved into my folder of stitches. So if I was to actually clear what I'd done on this one, let me put it on this stitch here, there's the one I've got selected. If I was to press clear on that and go and do some other things, if I actually went to my folder and went to the stitch, the folder with the arrow coming out, and to that number 1 again, there's my stitch. That's the one that I actually programmed in earlier on and saved into that folder. The one other thing we haven't touched on fully, didn't mean to expand that yet, is the combination mode with saving something into the memory. If we go into, well, we saved some lettering earlier on, so if we wanted to actually access that again, if I go to the plus button here, I'm now in this combination mode, which we've put some random stitches into. But if I wanted to access the picture, the Lucy with the hearts on that I did before, there's now 2 folders here in the combination mode, and it's the one with the 3 little squares on it. That's the one that'll have the thing that I have saved in. So I can then select that there, and that's the one that we did earlier. Okay. So that's how to use the combination mode and access it, and I keep doing that. Let's close that down. How to access the stitches that you've saved. And then again, that one at the bottom is a recently viewed. So these are all the stitches that we've looked at recently and put into the machine and selected. It just gives you an overview of ones. Actually, I think it's ones you've actually stitched, because we stitched the buttonhole, but we didn't stitch in the other things. So it's ones you've actually used on the machine. It's like a little quick kind of guide as to what you've last stitched with. Okay, so following on from the quilting stitches, because this is a Quilter's Edition machine, we're going to have a look at the Bsrs. This is the Bonina stitch regulator, and this is one of the really unique features of the Bonina range, is that it's compatible with this little bit of kit. So you get this lovely little tin, and inside we've got kind of an instruction book on how to use it, but we're going to show you a little bit of that now. And the Bsr itself, which is this foot with the actual, as you'll see, like a little plug attached to it, a little jack. I'm just going to pop that there so it doesn't roll away. And also a couple of different soles. So we've got an echo quilting sole and also an open toe sole. So these easily pop on and off the front of the foot. We'll just use the closed loop for now. To activate this onto the machine, I'm going to remove the buttonhole foot that we've had on and put this foot on in the same way on that all the other feet are attached, but then this is going to be a bit difficult to see, the plugging in of it at the back. I don't know. So there is actually a Bsr shaped jack plug that goes into there. This then automatically tells the machine that we are on Bsr mode and is asking us to drop the feed dogs, which is what you need to do for free motion quilting. I'll just pop this to one side and we'll drop the feed dogs down here. So this is what our Bsr screen looks like. So it's really similar to the standard screen. Information's very much the same. We can't select, some features are greyed out because it knows we're just using the Bsr. I'm just going to pop the table on as well so that we've got a bit more room, because that's for free motion quilting. It's nice to have a bit of space to actually place your hands around. So I'll just slide this on, it clips into position. There we go. So there's 3 modes on the Bonina 770 QE Plus model. We have got Bsr 1, 2 and 3 available, and also the little kickback mode as well. So Bsr1 is a, well, let me explain a little bit more about the stitch regulator as a whole, I suppose. So we can actually set, because normally on free motion quilting you can't actually set a stitch length, but what we can do is actually adjust the stitch width length here and the stitch width to a point to your desired length. And what the machine will do is sense how fast the fabric is, well, the foot, sorry, the Bsr will do, is sense how fast the fabric is moving and adjust the speed of the needle to keep it at that stitch length. Now there are limits to this, but when used correctly and with a bit of experience, it gives really, really good results. I'm going to set that stitch to about 260, I think, or what's the default? Let's have a look at the default. If I press clear, the default's 2, which seems quite small. Let's make it a little bit bigger. You know, but you're in complete control of this, so it's really nice. On the Bsr1 mode, when that's activated, it will start straight away. So it'll actually enable you to tie it off, move off, do your Bsr ring, do your free motion quilting, and then when you stop, it'll also then stitch. It's a continuous stitching. Bsr2 is it's activated when you actually move the fabric. So your foot will be in the air, and then when you move, well, the needle will be in the air, and then when you move off, it'll start actually sewing. And with both modes, the red light is engaged, which you'll see at the bottom in a moment. And then Bsr3 is a basting mode. So this has actually got a very, very long stitch length, as this is new to the Plus model, where you can actually baste around the edges of your quilt before actually putting everything together. We'll have a quick look using the Bsr2 mode here. I'm going to use the foot pedal to bring this down, and then when the red light is engaged, which you can see there, I don't know if you can see, I'm just going to stop and just get rid of that thread there. Ooh. There we go. As you'll see, once you get used to how the machine is moving, so this is regulating my stitches. And when I take my foot off the foot pedal, it stops with the needle down. I'll then just show you the basting function as well on that mode 3, so this is quite different. So you've got to wait for quite a while, but it's really handy to do some really quick basting. And so that's the Bsr mode on here, because it being a quilter's edition, that is all included with the machine. So we're just going to go through kind of the last part of the screen on the far right hand side, which is more of the settings that are kind of going on in the background and different personalizations that you can do to this kind of model, which is quite a lot really. I suppose on the home screen, two halves of it. You've got sewing and embroidery. Because this machine is embroidery enabled, I mean, you can have a look at it and mess around with it, but until you actually purchase a unit, you can't actually stitch out any of the designs. But I'll just show you one as an example, just to say that, so this is how your embroidery side of things would look if you had a unit that you could get to attach to the machine. But it's very easy to flick between the two. Just press the home button again to go back to the sewing mode. And again, you've got to put the feet dogs back up. There we go. In the settings, which is probably the one you might use most frequently, there's lots of stitch settings, your sensors, different things to do with personalising the screen. So inner workings of tension and speed, what the foot control does. So you can actually set the foot pedal to all sorts of personalised functions. Traditionally, it always used to just do the needle up and down, but you can also set it to do the trimming and raising of the presser foot and to tie off, or you could set it to do a kind of stitching in a row, very little tiny stitches, very good for piecing. So depending on what you have those set at, but it's really easy to personalise. And this breadcrumb trail that runs through the kind of menu settings, it's very easy to go back to go to different things. So here we can actually set what these different buttons do, including the needle stop position, which is a feature we saw earlier where when the needle stops in the material, it actually raises up and hovers. So that's where you would put that setting there. But I think the default when you get it out of the box is actually on for it to just stay lowered. I'll pop it back on that because I do like that function. So yeah, scrolling through these, there is lots you can do. If we go back to the kind of main settings, you've then got embroidery settings, but if you haven't got the unit, you don't need to worry about those at the moment. Sound, volumes, things like that, how loud the BSR beeps at you if you're doing it too quickly. And machine settings itself, so here you can look at how many stitches that you've done, what version of the software you're running. So these are things we might talk about when troubleshooting on any machine. Maintenance, how to update it, cleaning the thread catcher, you know, lots of information on here about exactly what to do, and that's all on screen. All of this is detailed in your proper manual as well, but you've also got it at hand on screen as well. Oiling, calibrating the buttonhole foot, little things like this that you can do all yourself. Then got the onboard manual. So if I was to exit out of the settings there and actually go onto the manual. So this gives us lots of tips and tricks about technique, how to use the feet, all sorts of bits and bobs on how to use the machine. So, you know, go through those at your leisure really. For example, on the quilting here, it's how to blanket stitch applique. So it's got really good little visualizations as well as, and you can use the dials again to scroll through. Loads of information about needles and fabric and settings. So there really is a lot of info here for you to utilise to get the most out of the machine. Because at the end of the day, Bonina have worked really hard to get these settings right to bring the best machine possible. The next one down is the creative consultants. This I find is really useful for tricky fabrics that you might not sew all the time. So we can also use this in conjunction with the question mark button, which is below, and because at any point on the screen, doesn't matter where you are, we can press the question mark and then press something and it'll tell us what that is. It's like an information, what does that button do? It doesn't actually activate that button, it just tells you about it. So if we're on the creative consultant, here we can choose a fabric. And so if we were to press the question mark, we can figure out what these fabrics mean. For example, what's this one trying to be? So that's tulle lace and nets. Some of them are obvious, you know, that's clearly leather, that's going to be faux furs. These ones here are knit fabrics, these are wovens, denim, that's things like toweling and also pile fabrics. So if we were to select an actual fabric, say we've got a heavyweight woven material, which would be something like a heavy wool or felt, things like that. We can say if there's a technique that we want to do on it, whether it be straight line quilting, free motion quilting, seaming, over edging, all sorts of things. If we wanted to do, say, a buttonhole on it, it's going to give us here all information about what stitch would be best to use, what needle we should use, the thread, the foot to use, and whether to use stabiliser. Any of these with a little plus next to them, you can expand it to get a bit more information about that item. If you were wanting to do that setting and like, yes, I want to do it, if you take note of all of those things that are on there, but you press the tick, it'll actually take you to the sewing screen and it will have set up the correct, even the foot pressure will sometimes be adjusted, but it's set up the foot, the stitch that it's recommending, all sorts of different settings on there for you. It's then up to you to make sure you're using the correct foot, thread and needle, all those stabilisers if recommended. But that's how the creative consultant works, which is really, really useful, especially for tricky things, because sometimes you might think, oh, the dual feed foot would be best for this material, when actually it isn't, and vice versa. So it can get you out of lots of different problems, let's say. So I've already run through what the question mark does. You've also got the eco button, that literally just kind of takes off all the lights, just to, if you go make a cup of tea or whatever, and just come and pop it back on and you'll be exactly where you were. So that's, and obviously the clear button underneath, we use that kind of in a more when you're in the stitching settings, if you want to actually take away any settings that you've set on there. So that's an overview of the screen and pretty much the entire machine and how it operates. I suppose to recap on the things that we've gone through, this is the Bonina 770 QE Plus model and integrated dual feed, 9mm stitch width. I don't know if I actually mentioned that, but yeah, a lovely wide stitch width, coming with a really great range of feet, most of them quilting focused, it being a quilter's edition machine, including the BSR. straight stitch plate also included, that 1/4 inch piecing foot also included with the dual feed, and everything that you need to help you get the most out of your quilting. Thanks for watching our video today, and if you'd like to see more like this, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel. If you would require any more information about this machine, then please just contact the shop. We're open for demonstrations, you can book an appointment if you'd like, and we can also give loads of information over the phone. So I'd just like to say, yep, thanks very much, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.